Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show. Boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful May the 21st, 2020. Cuando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, as you say, it was a beautiful day, Charleston, and the weather seems to be trying to spring back. Got kind of warm here today.
Yeah, it's always nice when you have that spring in your step, and when you have spring in the air, it's all fair and love of war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, just tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, Big C Sports is powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, Big C, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. I want to say, man, taking the pause. Every now and then, the people take the pause, but you get off the pause. I never want to put the pause on the Veterans Crisis Hotline, Big C. Their experience in helping veterans and their loved ones, Big C. Why is that so important to you?
Well, it's so important, Charlton. First and foremost, I want to say thank you and stay safe to the first responders and all the healthcare workers out there, the nurses and the doctors, Charlton. But as we think about the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, along with the veterans out there every day that are committing suicide at a horrific rate of 20 a day in this country. And during this pandemic, they're even under more pressure, Charlton, you know, trying to survive, trying to find ways and means just to get through the day.
Yeah.
And as we think about our veterans and we think that they should have everything that the country owes them, they just don't get it. You know, many of them are homeless. They're struggling out there just to get by daily. When your home is a sidewalk, Charlton, you don't have the luxuries that people have become accustomed to. So we got to find a way to get those veterans more help mentally and physically in this country.
And we will definitely do our part. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can definitely get some help. Also happen to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants. When you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you. The goal is simple. Recruit 100 real estate brokers. Put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. And yes, sports teams will do it too once they get off the pause. Let TV work for your real estate. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. Also, if you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com. And you can find out about opportunities that are available to you in the world of real estate. You know, Big C, we talk so much about how we can do things to help people get by and to help people get through. I want to make sure that I touch a little bit more on that National Suicide Hotline. I'm telling you, number one, you're pressured enough for starting about a year ago. I hear even the mothership, they do it on it every day now. They're talking about the hotline. But I want to just get your thoughts on something. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, the pandemic has taken a toll really on everybody, especially the millions of Americans who think seriously about suicide. It's a crazy thought, but people have been doing that. You think about the calls to the suicide hotline in part of the country, they spiked up, Big C. In March, when the stay-at-home directive took place, the crisis text line, would you believe it saw a 26% increase from previous months, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, as we don't address this issue enough in this country called mental illness, and it plagues everybody. It's like Corona, Charlton. It does not have racial or age barriers when it comes to that. And so many people that have been suffering from mental illness, Charlton, having this stay-at-home order and stay-in-place order in place that put even more pressure on them, trying to survive, just trying to function. And so many people are claustrophobic in this country, Charlton, and you don't know how far that will push somebody. And having a 26% spike to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, it shows that the message that we're giving is working, that people know a number to call, as well as many other outlets, Charlton, that are providing this information. But as we think about depression in this country, Charlton, and mental illness, that is one of the main factors that leads to suicide in America. And they need someone to talk to. It's not like these people sit up and make appointments like doctors or, well, I'll see you in 2 weeks at such and such time. They're readily available for you at all times, and that's what we need. The country needs to pay more attention to depression, Charlton, because during this pandemic time when people are cooped up in their homes and they can't get out and do normal social everyday activities, I find myself looking at the walls trying to figure things out myself. So this shows that what we're doing is a great public service as well as other outlets.
Yeah, it really is. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. I know everybody, but for the grace of God, let's all put our heads together for some prayer. That's always good in these times, especially. Big C, I also want to touch on something that happened in the SEC. I know we always talk about things that are, where they're avant-garde, they want to be the first in line, or the vanguards, the ones that do things first. But history has been made. The University of Vanderbilt University, on Thursday, the school announced that it has appointed Candace Storey Lee as its full-time athletic director, leaving the interim title that she had since February. Lee, who also holds the title as vice chancellor of athletics and university affairs, she's the first woman to hold the athletic director title at Vanderbilt University, a prestigious university in the South. And more significantly, Big C, she's the first African-American woman to lead an athletic department in the history of the Southeastern Conference. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, wouldn't it be great if NFL owners would pay attention to that? That when you're talking about you have to have motivation and incentives to hire an African-American, you're talking about the SEC, one of the most dominant Power 5 conferences in America, electing an African-American woman to oversee its athletic facilities, Charlton. That is a great monumental feat that they accomplished by doing that.
Yep.
And you don't have to do it with fanfare. You just do it to the qualified person. That's what the NFL black coaches have always asked. If I'm qualified, don't deny me the opportunity. And so I give kudos to Vanderbilt University for taking this monumental step to hire a black woman as the first athletic director of a Power 5 conference school. So you think about what that means.
Yeah.
As African Americans, the advancements that we made, that we just don't have to perform on the athletic fields, that we can perform in the corporate boardroom, Charlton, at a university.
Yeah.
That we can oversee budgets and administration and adhere to all those different athletic programs at that university, Charlton, and make the monumental right decisions.
Yeah, it's amazing because you talk about the SEC, and we think about it as an athletic conference, but really you're talking about the states of Jim Crow, where they used to lynch black folks the way they were having tailgate parties, Big C. It's egregious. I still remember how Oprah Winfrey, I believe it's in Alabama or Tennessee, I want to say it's Alabama, I may be wrong. There's a state down there where they had a museum, and they had these plaques. They were like hanging from the wall or hanging from the ceiling, and it was to mark every person of color that was lynched in the South. And I mean, as horrendous as that was, isn't it amazing that we have some of the Southern schools that are trying to atone for the sins of their fathers, and to have an African-American woman at the head of the athletic department for an institution that lived in Jim Crow with a pride? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, what this brings to mind with me, Charlton, is what the late Dr. Martin Luther King said. Judge somebody for the content of their character, not the color of their skin.
Yeah.
And that's what Vanderbilt University did, Charlton. The content of her character and her intelligence allowed them to advance her to this position of athletic director. You know, if the NFL owners, as we see, they say, okay, you got the Rooney Rule.
Yeah.
They didn't need a Rooney Rule in the SEC, Charlton, to hire
a
female African-American athletic director.
No, they sure
so
did not.
When you think about from the collegiate level, Charlton, what that means, And you're overseeing a huge department, Charlton, that has the same type of economics as an NFL team does.
Yeah.
But you're dealing with multiple sports and academics on top of that. So, I wish that the NFL owners, and I wish that the commissioner, Roger Goodell, would bring her into one of the owners' meetings, Charlton, and let her give a seminar on what it takes and what owners should look for in the qualifications of leading a program.
Yeah.
And I think it would bode well for the NFL to take a lead with that.
Yeah, it would bode well for the NFL, and they just got to do what's right. I want to do this thing because I've been also asking, for people to think about the hearts of men, the hearts of all men and women, no matter what color you are. But I want to just oppose something that just came out today. There's been another arrest in the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. I'm talking to NFL owners, okay? By Ahmaud Arbery, he was murdered by Gregory McMichael and also Travis McMichael. And then there's been a guy by the name of William Roddy Bryan was arrested and charged with felony murder in an attempt to commit false imprisonment. He actually is the guy that filmed the murder or the assassination of Ahmaud Arbery. And the Georgia Bureau of Investigations is putting this information out. Just came out today. I really hope they give him the electric chair if that makes any sense to people. Attorney General Bill Barr has been silent out of Washington, D.C. The White House has said nothing about it when prosecutors tried to hide and cover up before this videotape was published. Now, how does that make sense to the NFL? Like, Charlton, how do you tie that to not hiring minorities in the NFL? This is how I tie it together. And I'm talking to my NFL brethren, the guys that own teams. You can't tell me that you're more in line with the people down in Georgia, a Jim Crow state, the prosecutors that were hiding the cover-up of a murder, an assassination, and they said nothing about it. You say, well, that's deep, Charlton. That's too deep. How is it so deep that we have people who are willing to turn their eye when a man had his life taken for out jogging, and they tried to hide it by suppressing it, Big C? And now we have the same thing to juxtaposition with the NFL. We have the NFL trying to act like they don't understand we have a race problem in this country. And if they did the right thing, maybe the enmity wouldn't be in the hearts of those knuckleheads that I hope get the electric chair. I really do. Maybe if the NFL showed decency, instead of saying we got to pay white guys to hire black guys for fairness, it has to come from your heart. I hope that makes sense to you, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the people they need to go at, Charlton, as much as they went after those three men who took this young black man's life, are the two district attorneys who recused themselves from this case for obstruction of justice, Charlton, because they had all the facts from day one. And
That's
you,
right.
And you think it took 80-plus days for them to make the first arrest in this situation with Mr. Arbery in losing his life, Charlton. The obstruction of justice that was held by the two district attorneys in that county, and they're going to end up possibly walking free, but they're just as culpable as the three men that took this young man's life.
Yeah, and that thing that I'm saying, you mentioned about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Billy Graham, one black, one white, they stood on the side of justice. And when our NFL owners are no better than the people who hide and pretend that we don't have a race issue in this country, and when white guys do wrong, like the white guys that will not even give black men fair opportunity when it comes to employment in a league that's 75% black, that's made all of you billionaires, and then you turn a blind eye, just like these district attorneys, there's no race problem. We don't even see what you guys are talking about. I think it got to start somewhere. And if the NFL owners are decent, more decent than those district attorneys and those prosecutors that turn the blind eye, quit acting like everything's fair. Come out and say, you know what, we made some mistakes in the past, like Vanderbilt University's done, and we're going to atone for it by at least giving everybody equal opportunity. Big C, that has to make sense to somebody. Your thoughts?
Well, you would think that it would, Charlton, but we would not have to have these conversations if it made sense. And it's just like with hiring a black coach, Charlton. It makes sense. It honestly does. And you shouldn't be at this point in the year 2020 where you're not feeling uncomfortable being in the room with a black man, Charlton, and giving him power. But we still see that in this country, that black lives, whether it's on the street taking a jog or whether it's going in for an interview, do not get equality in this country. And the thing about it that bothers me the most, and we hear it on all the television shows and outlets, whether it's sports or news, they always have to ask the black man, well, what is your thoughts on it? why can't the white person on the broadcast say what his thoughts are on that?
Yeah.
Don't ask the black man, because he's appalled and you know he's pissed off.
Yeah.
Because of what had happened, because that person looked like him, could have been him. What does the white guy think of the injustices that go on, whether it's in hiring, whether it's in the taking of somebody's life? That's what they need to start answering the questions, because they are the ones that are facilitating it.
Yeah.
Don't ask the victim how he feels. Ask the perpetrator how they feel.
I believe wholeheartedly it's going to take decent people. People don't always like the platform that Big C Sports is using, but a lot of people have copied that platform, especially in the past several months, Big C. I just believe in being the vanguard as much as I can. I do want to also say this, because I think it's important in a world right now where people are trying to do the right thing. You have some anonymous donors, Big C. They pulled together $8 million to pay off college loans for up to 400 students who overcame personal hardships, like Ahmaud Arbery having to run through a neighborhood hoping he doesn't get assassinated, and he did. And the persecutors ran. They turned a blind eye. But this is important, Big C. You have $8 million to pay off college loans for up to 400 students who overcame personal hardships, from homelessness to extreme poverty. A lot of people who lived in poverty, especially a lot of young black kids, and they keep believing in the justice system and that the educational system and the legal system is going to be fair for them when it comes to employment, etc. But I think it's so important to become the first generation of college students. The donors are longtime supporters of Bay Area nonprofit Students Rising Above, called the SAR, and the money is intended to eliminate student debt for graduates of the scholarship program. These donors also, they're passionate about tackling the issues of student debt. And Elizabeth Dunvany, she shared the news with the program's alumni and read a short letter from the donors on a recent Zoom call. There are people who do good all over this country, and we know people that do bad. I like to be inspired by the good deeds, Big C, but we cannot ignore the bad deeds as well, Big C. Your thoughts?
You cannot ignore the bad deeds, Charlton, but what I love about this program you just mentioned is anonymous donors. People who are not seeking to be in the spotlight to advance other people's lives and careers.
Yep.
And that's what's good about America. These are the type of stories that you don't hear enough about on the news. And I know you were talking about the Magic Johnson Foundation donating $100 million for grants and all this. But when you give young people an opportunity to start life debt-free, if they've spent this time in college, they've beat all the adversities that they had to deal with in life, as you said, homelessness and lack of income and support.
And poverty.
But they struggled to get through college. They took out these loans, and they knew they were going to be in debt. But you have this organization, Charlton, that comes up and gives them a fresh start in life.
Yep.
And in the Bay Area, you know how tough it is out there in California. That's a very expensive area to be in California. So these young people, this is how people give back. When you teach, when we have these mentorship programs, and that's exactly what this is. A mentorship program. You show how.
All right, Big C, we had a little bit of technical difficulty, but I think we got it all back now. It's all fair and love and war. But that program you were talking about in the Bay Area, I think it's up here in Vallejo, Big C. Your thoughts?
It is, Charlton, and it's a marvelous program. And this is what's good about Americans. I mean, we hear so much negativity every day about what's going on and what's difficult for people to accomplish. But when you have these anonymous donors, Charlton, who make life easy for people, you know, you don't have to say my name on television, on radio, or in print, Charlton.
Do you know who I am?
This is just what I do out of the goodness of me. And when you have these anonymous donors and these kids are working towards a goal to be successful in life, you've given them a jump start to make America better.
Yeah, they really do a lot, and there's a lot of people who are silent partners in helping people overcome so many things, and I really appreciate what we have in having a sports business, Big C. I just want to say one thing, too, because there's always, you know, at times going from a large studio and then podcasts having more freedom, sometimes you have technical difficulties, but I even watch a lot of my brethren on the mothership on TV, and there are times when they have the same set of technical difficulties, but it's not what your unit is. It's about what your content is, and I really love the content that we're doing, Big C. So congratulations for everyone with a big heart, and you're giving to help people make life better for them. That's called Paying It Forward. I want to take some time to go into some thoughts, Big C. I want to talk about the best players who both won the NCAA and in an NBA championship. Number one, the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The man was born as Ferdinand Lewis Alcindor Jr., might be the biggest winner of basketball history. and he's still amazing at what he's done. He's won everywhere. In high school, he helped his team to a 71-game win streak, Big C. He went on then to the great UCLA under John Wooden and helped John Wooden win 3 straight national titles. The Bruins were 88-2 when Jabbar played his 3 seasons there. He was hurt during one of those losses. He was actually poked in the eye by a good old boy who got tired of being scored on, and it was more of the same when he went to the NBA. He led the league in scoring while leading the Milwaukee Bucks to a title, and then also he helped when he came west to Los Angeles. And Giannis may start reading books about Kareem because he may end up out here someday. He helped the Lakers win 5 more titles in a span of 9 seasons with the Lakers. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is a guy that's never talked about when they talk about the greatest of all time, Charles. So when you're talking about duplicating or beating the records that he set, as a high schooler, as a collegiate, as an NBA player, Charles, it's unparalleled. I mean, this guy, wrote the book on basketball. He may not have been a highlight reel that people wanted to watch every night, but the consistency of his actions from the youth to his elder age in the NBA, Charlton, is just unparalleled and just a phenomenal athlete.
Yeah, just a man that needs to be a statue of Kareem sometime soon in Los Angeles. Would love to see that while he's still doing his thing. Big C, also another great Laker. You look at Earvin Magic Johnson, after winning a championship in high school, and his company's helping to get $100 million in loans to help minority-owned business owners get through what's happened with COVID-19. But this young man, a championship in high school, a championship at Michigan State, got the better of Larry Bird's Indiana State team in an epic national championship game. That was back in 1979. Magic he won most outstanding player honors in that Final Four and what would become the first of many head-to-head battles with Larry Bird. As a rookie in the Los Angeles Lakers, Magic teamed up with the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to win the NBA championship. Kareem was the MVP for the season, but Magic was the MVP of the finals. During his 13 seasons, Magic helped the Lakers win 4 more titles, knocking off Bird and the Celtics twice with Johnny Most. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, as we think about the iconicness of basketball players, and Earvin Magic Johnson punches all the buttons, Charlton, on everybody's list. You talk about a great leader, a great competitor from his high school days in Battle Creek, Michigan, Charlton, to moving out to Los Angeles with the Lakers, and as a rookie winning an NBA title, back-to-back titles when you think about it, as a senior at Michigan State and as a rookie in the NBA. But this was the ultimate team player, Charlton, a guy who would change any position, who was not selfish as a player. And I think that was his greatest attribute in his contributions throughout basketball, that he was never selfish. He motivated his teammates, Charlton. He didn't berate them. He found ways to get you to the next level. And that's always been a part of what Magic did as a player and now as a businessman.
He's hosted a TV show. He's been a broadcaster. Now he's one of the best entrepreneurs in the history of the athletic universe. Really appreciate what he's done. I also want to go across the country in the land of green, Big C, the great Bill Russell. He went from west to east. The great Bill Russell, between 1956 and 1969, won 11 NBA championships. It's no coincidence that those are the same exact years that Russell played for them. While he had some help around him, Russell was amazing, Big C, a 5-time league MVP. So he did most of the work. To date, only Henry Richards of the Montreal Canadiens can match Russell in the number of championships, and one in the North American sport, of course. Russell also led the San Francisco Dons up on the hill in San Francisco to back-to-back national championships in 1955 and 1956. He also won an Olympic gold medal in 1956. Big C, your thoughts?
The record book has his name plastered all over. When you think about the accomplishments of Bill Russell, and I know people say, well, in the time that he played, the basketball players were not as great then as they are now. Well, the basketball players 35 years ago in the NBA were not averaging 115 points a game. They were at, if you win, with 85. So it's a different era every time you turn around and look at it. But when you think about Bill Russell, he didn't know the word lose. I mean, that was not in his vocabulary. You think about him dominating collegiate basketball, back-to-back NCAA titles, going and winning an Olympic gold medal, and then rolling into the NBA, Charlton, where he had to deal with competitors against Nate Thurman, Wilt Chamberlain, Walt Bellamy, George Mikan. There were superstar big men in the league already, but Bill Russell had that it factor that where he showed up,
They
it was
won.
going to be successful. And he proved that. And not only did he win as a player, but you think in his final year in the NBA as a player coach, he also won a title.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, he did his thing for a long time. I actually had the pleasure of one of my first broadcasts. It was the University of San Francisco. They were playing against Pepperdine over there in the Hill in San Francisco. Just a gorgeous gym. Not a big gym, but it's a nice gym. You see his name up there on the banners also. I want to go to a guy that for some reason people say they did not like Isaiah Thomas. They said he had too much, I guess, hot sauce in his Kool-Aid, if that makes any sense to put hot sauce in your Kool-Aid. Isaiah Thomas, he needed just 2 years at Indiana, leading the Hoosiers to the 1981 National Championship. Things weren't so easy, though, in the NBA. Thomas was drafted by a rebuilding Detroit Pistons teams. However, slowly but surely, Thomas did help Detroit build a championship-caliber team, ultimately winning back-to-back NBA titles in 1989 and 1990, with Thomas being the finals in the MVP in 1990. I'll never forget that time he played at the Forum in Los Angeles. He was hobbling around on one leg, Big C, but he still did his thing against the Lakers, Big C. Your thoughts?
And when you look at Isaiah, you talk about a guy with toughness. He and Magic grew up as buddies in the Chicago area, Charlton, so they've known each other since high school. But going to Indiana and having to deal with Bobby Knight, the general, a guy who was as tough as nails on his players and didn't cut anybody any slack.
No.
So you gained a lot of fortitude at the University of Indiana. And to be able to lead the Hoosiers to a national championship, Charlton, was a miraculous feat. And college basketball in those days, that's when guys stayed for 4 years.
Yeah.
So you always had veteran teams that you were competing against. But when you look at when he got to the NBA with the Detroit Pistons, and they were in the doldrums, but they built up that bad boy organization.
Yep.
I mean, they had a great host of players, Charlton, great role players. But not Magic, but Isaiah was the ringleader. And to be the smallest guy on the court and demand the most attention and respect from your teammates, that just deals with character. And Isaiah Thomas had it all. Regardless of all the talk that people have said about him over the past couple
Jealousy.
of years, the dream team and all of that,
Yeah.
this man was a bona fide champion.
He's also one of the reasons we have NBA basketball in Canada, helping to get the Toronto Raptors coming north of the border, and then also on the TNT with the players-only broadcast. I think the man's done an amazing job, especially coming from where he came from. Big C, it was always, when I heard growing up, it was Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. They were always saying Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, not the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. But for what it's worth, James Worthy and Sam Perkins, they did most of the heavy lifting at North Carolina for Dean Smith. In 1982, won the national championship game. However, the game was on the line. Dean Smith, he drew up a play to give Jordan the game-winning shot, not the other guys that were well-known on the team. But that was just the first of many times and many great memories that Michael Jordan's made in his career. As we know, he went on to lead the Bulls to 6 NBA championships, helping Chicago do 2 separate three-peats. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Michael, it speaks for itself when you say Michael Jordan. He's recognized by many people as the greatest basketball player to ever live. I mean, it's subjective to everybody's era and time and what they thought. Because when you think about the names that you just called off, Charlton, no one really has outdone anybody. I mean, it's an equal playing field. It's just about, he grew up in an age when television came alive and was having to be at the pinnacle of his game. But when you talked about Lou Alcindor opening up the program, Charlton, when you start talking about these greats and his accomplishments, that hasn't been beaten. When you look at what Bill Russell had done, during his playing days, that has never been duplicated. So Michael Jordan is a phenomenal player when he was in college and in the NBA. But this group of players that you named, Charlton, they're the Mount Rushmore of basketball. When you talk about guys who have won a title on the collegiate level and then duplicated that feat on the professional level, there's been many other players that have done that. But none have done it with the grace and dominance of the group that you just named.
No, none of them. And then a lot of these guys have gone on to do great in business also. When we come back, we're going to talk more about some things the NBA is talking about. Hey, let's just shut up and dribble, Big C. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we're back from what's called the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Timeout. And you can follow, every day you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on the apps that I love. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Also, the affiliation with Valley Homes Weekly, TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants. Just tell them Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it, and sports teams do it too. Let TV work for your real estate. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com and get opportunities in real estate. I wanna just say that list that we just talked about, and I realized those players, I don't know if they ever had I know they didn't have a pandemic, because the last big one we really had did not affect the players that we talked about. But it's amazing if people just realize the great list of players that we talked about. And basketball rebounded, if that makes any sense, to go on to even greater heights. So even if we have to have a pause based on science that's longer than what people expect, Big C, it always bounces back. The NBA is moving closer towards a return. The league is heavily considering using Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida, kind of as a soft bubble to resume play as a single site without fans. The money at stake for both sides is really the biggest motivating factor for both parties. What remains unclear, however, is why the present situation makes any more sense since the return of the pandemic. It started back in March. There was about a couple of deaths, a handful of deaths. Now we have over 90,000. Why play with 90,000 deaths but stop it with a handful, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, and that's the major concern, and you and I have addressed that every day, Charlton, is why the rush to get back? Because there is no safety measures in place to keep people safe. They're talking about, okay, we'll put all the players in one facility down in Florida. Florida right now is spiking with the coronavirus.
I know it.
The governor is fighting against the statistics, but it is spiking because people are outside and not practicing social distancing. But as you say, when the numbers were very low, now that the numbers have grown up to almost 100,000 loss of life in America, Charlton, and over 1.5 million people infected, they're talking about, okay, now it's better to go out and play now with the numbers in so expedited like they are. So money is the factor. We keep going back and forth about that money is the factor. But is money more of a factor to the players or to the owners? We know everybody wants to get paid.
Oh, yeah.
But who stands a chance of losing more money? Realistically, the owners. Because they got to get back television money, Charlton. They got to get back season ticket money. They're still going to have to get back season ticket money if they play the games anyway, because they're going to lose that. There's not going to be any gate revenue from the playoffs. And I know you remember a couple of years ago when the Golden State Warriors were hot.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman paid like $98,000 for two tickets for a Warriors game when they were playing the Cavaliers there in the Bay Area.
Yeah, in Oracle,
So, that type of money that the owners are going to be losing, they're the ones that are sitting there saying, we got to put the games back together. As we keep talking about in our broadcast, we never hear from the players as we hear from the broadcasters that this has to get going.
Yeah,
the players are not setting up the facility where they're going to be playing.
Yep.
They're not organizing all that. This is all from the owners and the broadcast companies.
Yeah, the owners are not going to get out there and do it. I would say most owners are approaching 70 to 80 years old. So SEC football, former Auburn football coach, legendary coach, he's 80 years old, Pat Dye. He tested positive for coronavirus. He's in a hospital in Atlanta. He was there because he was having some issues with his kidneys. Now, I know the SEC is big on tradition, and I would say Pat Dye, maybe his most famous athlete would be Bo Jackson. He's had a lot of good athletes down there at Auburn. So I wonder, with Pat Dye dealing with COVID-19 and some other health issues at 80, I wonder if he would say, I can't wait to get out there on the football field and hope that I don't get somebody else infected. What would he say if they called him to speak for the SEC? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, if you think about it, Charlton, this is the second story in 2 days out of Alabama. Because Auburn's in Alabama also, and you talked about Tuscaloosa, where they had those 10 workers
That's
on
right.
Bryant-Denny Stadium test positive for COVID-19. And now legendary coach Pat Dye has tested positive in a hospital in Atlanta. I don't know what the Georgia Bulldogs think about that, because he had to come to the hospital, and maybe they don't have good hospitals in Alabama.
Hey,
He had to come over to Georgia.
Yeah.
But, him being the athletic director at the University of Auburn,
Yeah.
think about that. You're the athletic director, and you get COVID-19, and you have to leave out of state and go to a hospital.
Yeah.
What do you say to the rest of the athletic administration and the athletes about the safety of getting together when you have to go quarantine yourself in a hospital and you're fighting for your life, and you said, put all those young guys out there on the field and let them compete against each other, and yet I'm quarantined.
Yeah.
If this is the message, he needs to be the spokesperson for the SEC, saying it's not safe.
You know what, Big C? That makes so much sense, because I'm just going to assume, and I was told in my law class in college, when you assume you're making an ASS of yourself, but I'm just going to assume that most of the boosters down there, they're about the same age as Pat Dye. I wish him the best. I know that people. I wonder what he really thinks, though. When you land up in the hospital and you got tubes running through you, there's no guarantee you get out. And I know people say, yeah, but you got to do it for the team. And I really wonder if Pat Dye, well, they're not going to take an interview in there and interview him, but I wonder what message he would give to those boosters out there in the South. But it's ironic what you just said. I don't know if he lives in Atlanta, but if you teach in Alabama, why do you got to go to Georgia to the hospital, Big C? Your thoughts?
No, he lives there, in Auburn, Alabama, Charlton. But, he comes to Georgia, I'm going to believe, because they probably have a better medical care system than what you would have in Auburn. I'm going to think Auburn's a town of less than 100,000.
Yeah.
Versus you go to the city of Atlanta, where you got 5-6 million people that are there, probably some of the best medical facilities with all the professional sports teams that they have in that area. But, this is a guy that's, been the leader of an athletic department, the coach who's won a national championship there at Charlton. He needs to be the guy that becomes the face of the SEC.
Yeah.
This is peril that you're putting the athletes in. I mean, when people say, well, now that it's touched somebody that now you can put a real face to it.
Yep.
You can put a whole entire conference to it now, Charlton, that one of the leaders of the conference, one of the iconic figures, has
legendary
coronavirus. Now, do you want him out there addressing the team as you bring the team around in a huddle and they all get close confined, him addressing the team, or would you do that? So, I mean, this is what they really need to look at, is that it has come home. And when you think about the University of Auburn, the University of Alabama, they're less than 100 miles apart from each other.
Yeah.
So when you think about that distance in between and social distancing, and all the people that you've named in the past couple of days, you had 10 people from Tuscaloosa yesterday. You got the guy from Auburn today.
That guy.
And then they said it could be many more workers that those people came in contact with because they didn't know.
Yeah, they didn't know. So I want to just get your thoughts before I want to go to a story out here in the Bay Area. If Auburn plays football and Alabama plays football, if one of the legendary figures of the SEC, which is Pat Dye, if they have to send him into Georgia for a hospital, what do they do if several players get sick? Are they going to send them all over to Atlanta? They don't. Does that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, isn't that ironic that you and I had addressed that the other day, that if there are road games and players test positive, what do you do with them?
Yeah.
How do you get them back home? Where do you keep them at? That's the situation here with Pat Dye. And you're talking about the major universities. Everyone knows of the University of Alabama and the University of Auburn.
Yeah.
There's Alabama, Birmingham over there, South Alabama. There's a dozen universities, within 200 miles of each other, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you think about social distancing, most of these athletes have competed against each other in high school, and during the off season, they're going to go back home and still work out with each other because they know each other.
Yeah.
And so think about the contamination possibilities from that. And just as you mentioned earlier about the NBA, what's the rush now to get everybody back together now that you got close to 100,000 deaths in America versus when they talked about, closing everything down, you probably had 100 at that time.
Ironically, that movie, I forgot, it was Sam Jackson and Matthew McConaughey and Sandra Bullock. and it was about a man
Mind
on.
to Kill is the movie down in the South.
And they said they told the all-white jury, just imagine if the victim was white. And now here you have a white man that's really the face of the SEC coaching brethren and athletic director brethren. And are they going to tell him to toughen up and just, we're going to take your temperature and you're going to be okay? I don't know. I just wish him nothing but the best. On the West Coast,
Well, you think about when you start looking at coaches. Nick Saban's 70 years old. Okay?
Yep.
He's 70 years old. And when you start thinking about the other coaches, Malzahn and those guys, Charlton, they're up in age. Mike Leach now in Mississippi State, he's in his mid-60s.
Yeah.
So as you look at the number of coaches that are in the SEC and the age bracket that they're in, you got a lot of coaches that have, crossed the barrier of 60 years of age in the SEC because they stay around when they're successful. And then you get Pat Dye, who is 80. So,
yep.
I mean, this is a sign that people really need to look at.
Sometimes when Mother Nature thunders and lightnings, that means you might want to get inside because it might start raining. But I guess a lot of good old boys, they don't hear the lightning and the thunder. They just keep going forward because their hopes are that they can get young black kids running around playing sports. In the NFL, Big C, running back Raheem Mostert, he's off the hook. The man's amazing on the football field. San Francisco 49ers, listen, he's expecting a child in the fall. I think he has a child with his wife. They're expecting another child. And again, because they don't really talk to athletes about it, like they're not going to interview Pat Dye and say, do you think we should kick off, next month, Pat Dye? Well, Mostert and his spouse, they have a child. And I'm just being very candid. Would anyone want to subject their newborn child to a pathogen that you get through breathing just so they can play football, as opposed to waiting and letting things get better? We had the fires out here in Northern California, Big C, about 2 years ago, up in the Napa area, part of the northern part of the Bay Area. And before they allowed people to go back in and rebuild, would you believe they put the entire fire out, Big C? They didn't say go build because the fire is 50% contained, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, there's hundreds and hundreds of NFL players, Charlton, with young, small children, that all of them have to weigh that issue about health over money, what it comes down to. And we've seen lately the cost of life to the youth of America when they said at first, well, it doesn't affect young people.
Right.
That's found out to be a lie, Charlton, because there's been dozens of young kids that have lost their lives from this pandemic. And even younger adults, Charlton, are starting to lose their lives also.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is where everybody needs to really pause about this rush to get back. Everybody said we got to get back because if we don't play sports, what's going to be the economic fallout for the next 5 to 10 years? That's what everybody's looking at. What's going to be the economic fallout? When you think about the number of colleges out there, Charlton, that are trying to get back to playing,
yeah,
there's probably 25 to 40% of the college that have enough financial reserve to make it through this without playing football.
Yeah.
If the others don't, then they would be in a financial deficit, Charlton, if they don't play. And that's why the biggest rush is. The need of the many outweigh the need of the few of the one. And it's the same thing with the NFL. All the owners are billionaires.
Yeah.
They could take that financial hit for a year. But are they willing to? No, they're not, because they can sacrifice players in their mind.
Yeah, it's a push to get the young black kids out there. I know people say, well, not everybody's black. 80% of the Power 5 conferences, 80% of those top teams, they're African-American kids. It's like the Tuskegee Experiment Part 2. This time, the kids know they could be in peril. In Brisbane, Australia, Big C, on the land down under, the NRL, which is known as the National Rugby League, they are telling their fans, they stopped playing, I think, in March 23rd. They're already looking at going back to play on May 28th, without fans in the stands because they're willing to sacrifice athletes too, but not the fans. And that's the same thing that we say about Pat Dye laying up in a hospital down in Georgia and not in a hospital in his own town. Unless he lives in Atlanta, I don't know where he lives. But there's a lot of people who are willing to say, hey, don't worry about Pat Dye. Let's just get you out there and play. Even in Australia, they took the pause, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this has been a worldwide scenario that has gone on. All the leagues, everybody went on pause. But as the death rate has risen and the infection rate has risen, then now everybody's saying it's okay to go back. When the rate was low in meniscus, no one, wanted to participate.
They
They
quit.
said, we got to stop everything.
Yeah.
But if they watch, and nobody's gotten over that curve, Charlton, people can say, well, the death rate, the infection rate is going down. No, the testing rate has gone down. That's the only thing that has gone down in this COVID-19 pandemic, is that the testing rate can go down, because no state has reached its threshold as far as a decline for 14 days, Charlton. When you think about, you've only tested probably in America 8 to 9 million people in 3 months. That's not a lot. When the president said anybody who wants a test can get a test anytime they want it, that was another one of the lies that he told, because you can't get a test. You can't get a mask. The hospitals still can't get PPEs that they need. But the rush to get everybody back as the numbers continue to go up.
Yep.
And you know the numbers are going to go up even more, because now you're not going to be practicing social distancing. You're going to breathe on everybody. And they say practice social distancing. How in the hell do you do that in a contact sport? Every sport that's played, real sport. I'm not talking about tennis. I'm not talking about golf.
Yeah.
I'm talking about real sports where you have to compete against others. There is physical contact. There is no social distancing. Whether you're looking at soccer, whether you're looking at rugby, as you were talking about, which is rougher than football without pads.
Yeah.
You're talking about football. You're talking about baseball. You got to be in close proximity to each other. Basketball, you're leaning and laying on each other. I don't know if anybody has watched a basketball game,
Yep.
but it's next to the WWE as far as contact. That they have.
Yeah, especially the 80s bad boys, Big C, don't play as difficult. Now, NASCAR, we talk about football and baseball wanting to get back, and NASCAR, even the Indy cars, they're racing inside of the car. They're not really coming into contact with people. But Indy cars made more revisions to the schedule because of COVID-19. The Open Wheel Series, I believe it was slated to begin June 6th at Texas Motor Speedway, and then I think June 27th in Richmond, Virginia. Also in Toronto, Canada, July 12th. Well, Big C, they've been canceled, okay? They've been canceled as far as even out July 12th, and they want to make sure that people are safe. So if you can push off IndyCar races because of COVID-19, and you don't have fans in the stands, and they have that petroleum that can kill a lot of things if you get it on anything, so they're pushing racing off. They're trying to get body-to-body contact sports in. Big C, that make any sense? Your thoughts?
Well, that's what Americans have a burning and yearning desire for, Charlton, is to see people in hand-to-hand contact.
Yeah.
Battle. That's what they want to do. And that's what all these sports are. The sports that they're crying about getting together is hand-to-hand battle. I know we've had the MMA going, and they're saying, well, it's social distancing. You got 3 people within proximity of each other in the ring, and fluids are flying.
Yeah.
They said, well, we tested them for corona prior to. Okay, but still, they still could have had it and not shown it. But, with all of that going on, you're going to have, anytime you have a team sport, Charlton, you're going to have multiple bodies out on the field, cross-contaminating with each other.
Yep.
You think about the center and the quarterback if they're not in the shotgun every play. He's got his hand on his sweaty butt every play, Charlton.
Yeah.
Every play.
Yeah.
And you think about the linemen, every play, they're breathing, leaning on, and falling on each other every play. And the running back's getting up in the middle of that also.
Yeah.
So there's no way that you can keep everybody safe. And the referee is running in there trying to spot the ball and pull people off the pile.
Yeah. And a lot of things happen at the bottom of the pile, bending fingers, sometimes people biting, even spit on each other. Baseball players, Major League Baseball, they're responding to the virus protocols. I don't think any intelligent person would play Russian roulette. I just know that people, well, I can't say that, but I don't think any intelligent person would do it. Again, just like the fires that happened in Napa, I know people were complaining that they had to get out of their homes and they couldn't wait to go back to rebuild. But the state would not let you go back and rebuild until the fires are put out. So COVID-19 is not put out yet, but they're opening up malls in Northern California tomorrow. They're doing a lot of things to get people back and forth. But when you have baseball players, they have a 67-page proposed set of protocols for a season to be played during the coronavirus pandemic. To me, it's a lot like trying to build a house when the neighborhood's burning down, and just keep your eyes closed and believe it won't happen to you. That's what it seems like it's doing, Big C. Is that too unrealistic, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, like I said, everybody that keeps crying for everybody to get back out and compete, they're not willing to get together on their job, Charlton, and be face-to-face and side-by-side. That's what bothers me the most about all of this. every day that you turn on the television, every day that you turn on the radio,
Yeah.
you have everybody talking about the need for sports and the need to get back together, to stop social distancing. But they're social distancing while they're at work.
Yeah.
And so why can't they be the leaders? If you believe that it's good for sports to be back and these athletes to be back in competition with each other, be the lead example. Put everybody back in your studio. And all the broadcast companies on television know exactly what I'm talking about, whether it's cable or whether it's local broadcast. Get back together in the studio. Put everybody there on that round table where they're 2 feet apart from each other so they can all get in that same lens shot.
Yep.
And start letting them debate back and forth with each other. Since you trust the science so much, saying that it's safe to go back and play, put everybody back in the studio and let them play together.
They say put your money where your mouth is, and sometimes people don't do that. Spanish striker Aldurez, he's announced his retirement on this week from soccer, and he's doing it because he's 39 years old. And he said his body's had enough, Big C. I guess he has to have a hip replacement at 39. But here's a guy who's smart enough to step aside for doing something that could cause him pain and even bodily injury. And that's just the hip surgery. And then you have guys saying, well, they'll take the risk with the COVID-19. I want to just get this story before we go into our final statement, Big C. We always do Big C's Friday Night Lights. We do the high school top 10 football games, and we were just talking about this really of the last couple of weeks, Big C. So there are high school programs in the United States. They're playing state champions versus state champion. Just what you and I talked about. Pat Dye, a legendary Auburn football coach and athletic director, is in a hospital, and he's in Georgia, but Auburn's in Alabama. I want to read out some high school scores or some high school teams that are going to get in airplanes and fly across the country for what purpose? Bishop Gorman, Las Vegas, Nevada, to play Washington, Massillon, Ohio. That game's going to be in Canton, Ohio. Hoover, Alabama is going to play Loudon High School of Valdosta, Georgia. IMG Academy of Bradenton, Florida is going to play Dutch Fork of South Carolina. St. John Bosco of Bell Tower, California, last year's national champions, is going to play Miami Northwestern. St. Francis Academy, Baltimore, Maryland, going to play Centennial of Corona, California. That game's going to be played in San Diego. And there's many, many more programs. Central High School of Miami is going to play St. John Bosco of California. Concord de La Salle is going to play defending Texas State champion North Shore. That game's supposed to be in Houston. Have they just heard that probably a multimillionaire in Pat Dye, that was one of the most legendary coaches in the history of the SEC, is in a hospital due to COVID-19. Now we're going to get young high school kids, fly them across the country to play high school games in the midst of COVID-19. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I got to think that those schedules were put together prior to the close down from the pandemic, and all of those athletic departments are rethinking that schedule, Charlton, and putting those kids in peril of transporting them to another state to potentially play a football game. I think that the health risk is too far, fetched, for them to even consider that any longer. But once they put those schedules together, and once the pandemic hit, Charlton, they have to go back and reassess that and say the risk is not worth the reward.
Yeah, it really is not worth the reward. I love talking about this, Big C. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you got to have a smart TV or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. There's so much that I love about the sports business. I really do hope that the Justice Department will go down to Georgia and lay some charges on those good old boys that assassinated a young man just for out jogging. Everybody jogs in California. You never have to worry about that. I hope they can put a statement on that, and I hope the NFL owners will not try to align themselves with the people down in Georgia that ran away and tried to hide what's really going on. It's all fair and love and war. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charleston, once again, thank you and stay safe to the frontline healthcare workers, the nurses, the doctors, the first responders, but also Candace Lee, the athletic director, new athletic director at Vanderbilt University. I wish you a long and prosperous, healthy sports life there in the SEC.
That's a very way to end the show. We wish everybody the best. Stay blessed and highly favored. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. And as we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.